Welcome to What's Next? Living Longer, Better, Smarter. We aim to make it time well spent. In this edition, adding more spring to your spring. We've got a best-selling author, some great new tech, a visit with America's Chief Elder Officer, love that title, and a chat with a tech concierge service for older adults. And along the lines of adding more spring to your spring, this edition is brought to you by Morlo, a women-founded athleisure brand inspired by pickleball and built with brain health at its core. Every purchase supports brain health education and research. Visit moorlow.com and use the code FOM15 for 15% off. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with Mary Furlong. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Fred. Here we are in the month of March, our own March Madness, and spring is almost here. And what are we focusing on today?
We have a great lineup for everyone. First, Mary, I want to congratulate you. The Nob Hill Gazette is out with an article headlined The Inspiring Women of San Francisco. And there you are among the 21 mentioned. It says each year the Nob Hill Gazette and San Francisco Examiner honor the women whose work and philosophies shape the city in visible and invisible ways. And it says you've spent your life building companies, conferences, ecosystems, and communities in the longevity space long before it became a buzzword. Just wonderful, Mary. Congratulations.
Wow, it's so humbling. When I saw that list and the mayor of Oakland and the head of PG&E, I thought, wow, this is just incredible. And also, shout out to Brooks Kenny. I've known Brooks for 20 years and I watched her build Morlo, and it's a wonderful brand. Everyone loves the colors, the design, and also the contribution. So it's a very humbling time for me, Fred.
And all of these people are so accomplished, as are you. Everyone can read all about it, as they say, at nobhillgazette.com.
So let's get back to our podcast and another mover and shaker.
Mary, our first guest is a best-selling author, an oncologist and bioethicist, and vice provost for global initiatives at the University of Pennsylvania, where he holds appointments in the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy, in the Perelman School of Medicine, and the Department of Healthcare Management in the Wharton School. There's a whole lot more to his resume, too. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, hi.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us on the podcast. Is it okay that we call you by your nickname, Zeke?
Everyone else does, including my mom.
Well, we appreciate you being with us. And I have to say, we really love the title of the latest book, Eat Your Ice Cream, 6 Simple Rules for a Long and Healthy Life. I love the content of the book as well. And your focus here, it seems, is on taking some of the stress out of trying to get healthy, really on lifestyle. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, part of the book was a reaction to all those wellness influencers out there and longevity people who want wellness to be your obsession, and you're totally focused on it. I think in some place in Peter Attia's book, he says, our sole goal is to outlive. Well, that's nonsense as far as I'm concerned. It should be in the background. You have bigger issues, more important things to do in life than just to focus on more life and more wellness. You have your family, you have doing well by your community, your country, whatever organizations you're part of. And that really needs to be the focus. So the wellness activities, as I argue, they should become habits for your life and live in the background, not be the things you're concentrated on all the time.
So let's give everyone more a taste of those 6 simple rules. And are you really telling everyone it's okay to eat ice cream?
Yes, it's definitely okay to eat ice cream. First of all, it's dairy. Dairy is good for you. I may be a little more exuberant than a lot of other people. So it certainly makes you taller if you have it as a kid. It actually reduces your risk of diabetes. It reduces your risk of colorectal cancer. So there are reasons to eat dairy. Yes, there's saturated fat in it, although the saturated fat seems to be managed and metabolized differently because it's in vesicles. And we know that dairy is generally good, and ice cream is one of those things that brings joy to you. And having an enjoyable life is just as important and maybe more important than living a long time. The important point is to do it in moderation, not to be, eating 3 scoops of ice cream with hot fudge sundae nuts and a cherry on top every night.
So, most of my career, I've been focused on the idea of social connections. So, let's talk about social connections and along with the idea of being nice, because I want to tell you, I went to a new ice cream store here called Scoop. It's a family ice cream store. The ice cream's delicious. I gave ice cream sandwiches away. Everyone loved them. But I love when these small businesses also build community. So as people retire, they don't always know how to build community. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I would say one of the major differentiators between me and all the other wellness commentators is my focus on social relations and interaction. Because those turn out to be the most important thing you can do for a healthy, long, and happy life by far. Statistically, we're not talking about just rhetorically here. So, just to give you one example of a study, the Health and Retirement Study, which is conducted by the government, has about 20,000 people over 50, and they interview them every couple of years about what is happening. And they did a study where they assessed the friendships and social relations of people. How many friends did they have? How many times they visited with the friends and things like that. And then they followed them for 8 years. And it turned out the people with richer social relationships actually had a 25% lower risk of dying in the next 8 years. And that kind of study has been repeated in Sweden, Australia, and other countries. Indeed, the longest running study is a study of social relationships. It's the Harvard Adult Development Study, begun in the late 1930s. John F. Kennedy was part of that study when he was a sophomore at Harvard, and so was Ben Bradley, the legendary editor of the Washington Post during the Watergate era. And their results, and they've been going for 85 years, and they've enrolled the spouses, another cohort of less privileged kids, their children. And their conclusion is that social relations were the best predictors of a long life, the fewest disabilities, and the happiest lives. So you have to focus on social relations. And remember, there are two kinds of social relations. One are our close friends, family, siblings, often our college roommates who we've, grown up with and stayed in touch with for 30, 40, 50 years. But there's also the casual relationships. You go into a coffee shop, you go to the grocery store, you talk to someone. I take a lot of cabs and Ubers in Washington, D.C. Almost all of them are driven by people from Ethiopia. Washington's the second biggest Ethiopian city in the world. And I asked the driver, I said, where are you from? And they say, Ethiopia. I said, I've been there 5 times, and they just light up. They just love that someone knows their country. And so we begin to talk about Ethiopia. I tell them the cities I've been to Gondar, Lalibela, Addis Ababa. I've looked at the healthcare system. I ask, where are they from? Where's their family from? Which tribe are they from? And, by the end of the conversation, they drop me off. I've had a great conversation, learned something. They've had a great moment of recognition. Someone has seen them, understood about their country. I actually got a whole dissertation from one of them about the current government in Ethiopia that he was railing against. So very informative.
Those relationships are so important. I want to get together with you just to have a piece of that cheesecake you talk about in the
Oh, absolutely.
book. Now, do you want to expand on another rule here, which is don't be a schmuck? And I think you got that from your dad, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. When his boys, there are three of us, used to do something stupid, he would sort of hit us on the back of the head with his hand and say, "Don't be a schmuck." And by that he meant don't do something stupid. Part of my putting it in there, we know that there are a lot of stupid things that we should avoid. Don't smoke, don't vape. It may be better than smoking, but it's still not healthy. Um, Alcohol, we can talk about that. It's a complicated issue. Take your vaccines. Don't listen to RFK Jr. Take your vaccines. And if we're talking to older people, one of the critical ones that I push in the book, and I push really hard, is the shingles vaccine. It's like a miracle. Uh, Not only does it prevent you from getting a very painful case of shingles, it actually decreases your risk of developing dementia. What could be better? Um, and there are lots of other schmucky moves. When I began writing the book, I thought the stupidest thing you could do is something called base jumping. Maybe the audience doesn't know that. That's putting on this kind of Michelin man squirrel suit, no propulsion, no engine or anything, no parachute. You just jump off a mountain and you're really governed by the winds. Um, Turns out that the mortality rate is 1 in 2,700 jumps. And almost everyone who does this knows that they're going to die doing this. It's like insanity, in my opinion. Turns out there's something even stupider than base jumping, and that's climbing Mount Everest, where the mortality rate is 1 in 100. So it's like, don't do those things. Those are just dumb. They're just increasing your risk without uh, commensurate benefits. Um, and all of us, we take risks. I'm not saying don't take risks. I'm a big risk taker. The riskiest thing most of us do is turn on the ignition to our car. And so you calibrate the risk by, is it more risky than driving or less risky than driving?
And that's not to mention buying a car that doesn't go in reverse. But that's another story. Read the book. Read the book. So when it comes to physical activity and your Move It chapter, how much, what kinds of exercise, what should we know?
So first of all, there are three kinds of exercise you have to engage in. The first is aerobic exercise, getting the heart rate up, getting your respiratory rate up. Good for the heart, good for the lungs, good for your vasculature, decreases your risk of strokes. Really important. Then there's strength training. After 55 or 60, our muscle mass goes down about 6 to 8% per year. And so you have to actually strengthen yourself and you have to do it intentionally. And the last is flexibility and balance. And, that's really done by yoga. Um, the important thing is you need, over the course of a week, 75 or so minutes of vigorous activity, or 150, that's about 2 hours of moderate activity. And, you know, what I suggest to people is do what I call twofers or even trifectas. What's a twofer? Well, I like to go out bicycling, or when it's too cold out, I bicycle with a stationary bike. And you get aerobic exercise. You also get strength training, and a bicycle, it's in your lower body. So you have to compensate by doing something for your upper body, and, strengthen your biceps, your triceps, your shoulders. And that's the kind of thing you can do. And as I like to, now we're in the midst of the Winter Olympics, as I like to say, there is one real trifecta physical activity, and that turns out to be Nordic skiing, cross-country skiing, because not only are you aerobically going, you're moving every part of your body, your upper body, your lower body, and you need balance and flexibility for it. There aren't that many of those. Now, recently we've had reports that tennis, people who do tennis, live the longest. Turns out that tennis people who play tennis, I'm sure are good. There's a lot of aerobic activity, a lot of balance necessary. But tennis players tend to be a biased set. They tend to be more well off, richer. And we know richer people tend to live a lot longer than poor people. So saying tennis players, that they're going to live a long time, because of the tennis, pretty unlikely. It's mostly because, yes, tennis is good. It's good physical activity, but they also have a head start because they're well off and often well educated. But you can walk, you can hike, you can ride a bike, you can swim if there's a pool near you. There's lots and lots of things you can do to get the exercise. The other and last point I would make is there's a plateau. Doing more um, is not a good idea. Peter Attia recommends 10 hours a week. That's way too much time. You don't get any big benefit. You risk repetitive motion injuries like hurting your knees or tennis elbow or things like that. Plus, you have opportunity costs. And if you just did 4 hours a week, that would be fine. And you would have 6 hours to devote to something else, which is important in your life. 10 hours is too much time in exercise.
So you're a proponent of putting aside all of our electronic devices sometime and working on more human connections. And I want to talk a little bit about the boomers at 80 this year. Sometimes you lose friends when you're in your 80s, and then you have to go figure out how to find new friends. How do you do that? And so let's talk a little bit about how we can work on human connections. It's a question I'm asked almost every day.
Yes. So I think you have to figure out how you can get into a social environment and then reach out to people. Go creating a book club with people you know in your building or people you happen to know, going to events where you can connect. One of the things that's certainly true is you can be a docent at a museum and meet other docents. They're frequently, certainly in Washington, they're frequently retired people. You can learn a lot, keep your mind very active, um, have a social network. It's very important. One of the biggest challenges, I think, as you point out, is once you leave work, stop working, you lose that built-in social network that you have at work. I have a colleague who left University of Pennsylvania, and he wrote me. He said, I've been gone a year. I saw you on TV, and one of the things that really has happened to me is I've lost my social network that I had at work, and I haven't been able to reconstruct it. So, one of the suggestions I have is go to events and talk to the person next to you, and you can never tell when you'll have a connection. One of my research assistants who worked on the book and got all the citations and made sure my numbers were exactly right. He went out to a restaurant. He was sitting at a bar eating alone, and he said, "This isn't Zeke's. This isn't what I wrote worked on." So he asked the bartender. He says, "This restaurant's brand new. It's only been open a few weeks. What did you do before?" And she said, and then it turned out, she said that she's actually getting a master's in healthcare administration from Temple. And he said, well, I work in health policy. And they had a whole conversation for a half hour. And then a guy down the bar said, oh, I remember you, to my researcher said, you were in my film class. Um, and, after 45 minutes, he left feeling great. But that's an opportunity. You've made a connection. And you can continue those kind of connections. So I think one of the things that has to become second nature is reaching out, asking that first question, or as I put it in my book, Copying My Father, be an initiator. Maybe the person doesn't want to talk. Maybe they'll be monosyllabic. Yes, no, just basically get away. You haven't lost anything. Your ego's not going to be damaged from that. And might turn out that you actually have something in common and you might be advantageous. So I think create opportunities where you can be an initiator, whether volunteering at a place, just talking to someone next to you on a train, on a car, in an airplane.
Wonderful advice. So let me get your thoughts on all of the wearables out there. We know we don't want people, you're saying, overdoing it. And maybe the wearables, egg people on to do more. But what do you think about them
We
measuring
don't really have
steps,
good data
heart
on
rate,
on your
etc.?
we don't have good data on your last point that if you wear a wearable, you're actually going to consistently do more activity. Turns out no good data on that. Now, for some people, that may be true. My wife, who's got an got a PhD from MIT, yes, the wearable actually works for her. She does more because of it. I don't. No wearables, and part of the reason is it makes you obsessed about the number, and there's not necessarily a good thing. And there was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal about competitive sleepers. And it turns out every one of the competitive sleepers wore something to measure their sleep. But the next day, they didn't look at the data because they didn't want it to skew their attitude towards the new day. Well, what the hell is the point then? It really isn't doing any good for you. Um, so I think I don't recommend them. Sometimes they're not right. Like the new Apple blood pressure monitor turns out not to be that good. Um, and I just don't see whether you're going to listen to like an Aura ring. You're going to wake up in the morning. You had a good night's sleep. You feel refreshed. and the aura ring tells you, no, you didn't have a good night's sleep. What are you going to believe, the ring or your experience? If you're going to believe your experience, forget the ring. So that's the way I feel about it. And, I used to have a pedometer. I threw it away after a few weeks. Why? I do 10,000 steps plus or minus 2,000 every single day. And I know when I've really walked a big distance and I've gotten 25,000 steps because I've been out hiking or something. It just doesn't help me.
Of
Just
course,
to
my sister's in Hawaii this week with her hiking group. I think there are 30 of them. So I see a lot of flocking of people into travel and adventure. And I
Great
think
idea.
I think that's a really good idea. I personally like my water aerobics class. I know some people, faith is another kind of community builder, and then
Yes, absolutely.
volunteer some. Fred, I think you and I build our community through the podcast and the conferences, don't you think?
do. The conference is a lot of community building, absolutely. So,
Right. So I really, I mean, it's been the essence of my work building community, but I see so many people needing to have a book like this that tells them, here's the steps you can take. And I don't think anybody's ready for the cliff of when they lose a partner. And so that's sort of another time because we can be a little shy when we go in to a new situation, whether it's yoga class or water aerobics or whatever. And so we have to get rid of that shyness. And then
Yes,
I,
and here's actually writing the book made me learn a few things, and so I wrote the chapter about social connection. And someone asked me when I was explaining what about introverts? They don't want to reach out, they don't want to be
great
initiated.
question.
So
Yeah.
I researched the topic, and turns out the data are pretty clear. When introverts act extroverted, they're actually happier. They enjoy the interaction. They think they're not going to enjoy the interaction. They think it's going to take more energy, but it turns out not to. A guy named Nick Epley, Epley, from the University of Chicago, has done studies by people who are commuting into Chicago, and one week he said, just do your regular commute. And then he measures their happiness at the end. And the next week he says, all right, on this commute, you have to talk to one stranger. And it turns out they're much happier at the end of those commutes where they're forcing themselves to talk to a stranger, even though they think it's going to be onerous. Maybe they won't learn anything. Maybe the conversation will fall flat. Turns out, overall, introverts, like extroverts, are happier when they actually talk to people. And there's a Canadian study similarly during COVID. Those people who were with other people, introverts who were with other people, actually, excuse me, did had much happier and better time and fewer infections.
So, Dr. Emmanuel Zeke, thank you for spending some time with us this morning for your important work and for the book. And I guess Fred and I will go have ice cream later today.
Absolutely. So,
well,
I
the title again is Eat Your Ice Cream: Six Simple Rules for a Long and Healthy Life. Go get it. And there's a website, ezekielmanuel.com.
thank you.
Wow, what a great book and an amazing person. And he's from an amazing family too, right, Fred? You found out about that.
That is for sure. And speaking of amazing, we are happy to have with us again the guy with the title of America's Chief Elder Officer, founder and CEO of Care Yaya and more, Neil Shah. Hi, Neil.
Hey, Fred. Hey, Mary. Thanks so much for having me. Good to see you guys.
Yes, happy to see you, Neil. We just love you and your team at Care Yaya and how you're changing the world, offering caregivers from universities, many entering medical professions. And you recently posted about one 20-year-old student caregiver who was paired with an 84-year-old retired teacher. Your work is priceless, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Tell us about this 20-year-old.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll happy to share the story. So Ethan, a pre-medical student here at UNC Chapel Hill, told us when he joined the CARE program, I studied really hard. I'm, getting good grades, aspiring to medical school, preparing for MCAT test, but oftentimes you're kind of like looking for the purpose and meaning of like, why did I choose to go into this in the first place? So through our program, he got paired up with Margaret, an older lady living in the community, whose husband has passed, who's, living by herself, and, just help with kind of like daily things, companionship, preparing meals, taking her for a walk, things like that. So that her, kids who live further away could keep an eye on her. And, it's like been really cool and inspiring to see. And these are the stories that really motivate our work, if like what has happened over the last few months, really a budding friendship has formed. And both sides, it's not just like one person is caring for the other. By the way, I want to be very clear of that. I actually think that the biggest value in this is that both sides stand to gain and learn a lot from each other. He's certainly helping her with a lot of the day-to-day tasks as she has, some mobility impairments and et cetera. But she's also helping him, if like, hey, let's do these activities, let's like teach you how to cook, things like that. And I think that that has been like one of the most wonderful things to see. One thing I observed from our work is there is a loneliness amongst our younger population. Studies show between 30 to 35% of people in this Gen Z generation are lonely and isolated and say that every day I feel lonely. Studies also show it's a barbell where approximately 27% of people who are above 65 report feeling lonely, especially ones who have passed away and who don't have their adult children living near them. So I actually think that, there's a cool way to solve the loneliness epidemic by bringing, these two sides together. And one of the more interesting books I've read on this, before I started Carrie, but I still reread once in a while, is called Together. The healing art of connection in a sometimes lonely world. And it's by the former Surgeon General of the US, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who made this a big campaign, during his time as Surgeon General. I would highly recommend for everyone to read it. But yeah, I think that's like, when you see something like this, it's like not just you're connecting the people and they're finding mutual activities and tasks to do and feeling less lonely. It's even a second order impact where, Margaret's kids who live far away feel like, oh, mom's feeling and acting happier and better. And I think that rediscovering a sense of purpose and meaning in her life, by connecting people in their community, I think is like it's a really cool thing. So yeah, I'm super excited.
And she was learning TikTok from the
Yeah.
caregiver, and
Yeah. It's kind of
he
like,
got a pie recipe or something.
yeah, yeah. So TikTok, by the way, it's funny. We see a lot of older people, I think, are very curious of like, hey, what are the young people doing nowadays on these social medias, on TikTok, on making videos? And, they want to learn. And yes, she's been learning it. She's kind of created an account, started making videos, and, you can set it to public or private, so for now it's like private where like the family members and friends will like see the videos. But that's something fun, and I think it's like something fun and something to look forward to. And for him, it's like the Gen Z is like very digitally native. They're skilled at doing this kind of stuff. And then yes, he was learning how to make apple pie and kind of like learning cooking recipes, which I think has been really fun. One of the biggest fun positive beats of feedback we get is these college students' parents tell us, hey, this is wonderful. Like, my kid is like doing something socially positive in their community and like learning cool things. And then many times the parents will share on Facebook groups of like parents of children at XYZ University and tell their other friends who are parents that, hey, maybe your kid should do a program like this. So yeah, that's been really fun to see. But yeah, I love seeing activities like that.
I went to a very inspiring dinner Saturday night at Vivian, and the woman was the Meals on Wheels driver, and you could
Mm,
just see the connection that they had, and also for people that were serving Meals on Wheels. And she
yeah,
was so inspiring. They raised thousands of dollars right after she spoke.
right.
And I think this is what we learned earlier from Dr. Emmanuel when we were interviewing him in his book. He says, reach out to someone at the next table. The other day, I was in Beverly Hills. I was having dinner. Two women came over and sat at my table. They called me the
Nice.
next day. This is all it takes is this
Yeah,
reaching out. And
yeah,
how wonderful to share a recipe. Food brings us all
yeah,
together. I think you're spot on with the loneliness of younger people. I've
yeah,
been doing teas in my home, and you remind me to do another tea. And
yeah.
my MBA students wanted to come to tea. It's so
Nice.
easy to open up your home. And so, and also, you have been a genius at social media sharing things. So, a lot
Thank
of
you.
people find out that way, correct?
Yes, yeah, and I hope it inspires them to do something in their community. I think, and Mary, that's awesome that you're hosting the teas for your students. By the way, New York Times had this great article a couple of weeks ago, which was, guess what the number of things people, kind of young adults or even middle-aged adults have been invited to somebody's home in the last year? It's less than 3 times on average. And if you look at generation prior, it was over 20 times. So with the rise of both digital technology and with the pandemic and just kind of like changing the way society socializes, we've had a massive decline in the number of times the average person is invited to somebody's place to have tea or have lunch or share a meal. And I think that's a real shame because just very simple things like that, can really bring people together and can make somebody feel like I'm part of a community. So yeah, we love sharing these stories, through social media because we hope that somebody reading out there might be inspired. I'm going to go do something in my community. And I think it resonates with people, so that's been really cool.
And I also think when you're an empty nester, and Fred could speak to this as well, is that we miss Sunday dinners when everybody was around the table. Now, we often get invited to Sunday dinner, but I love just hosting Sunday dinner and how nice to bring those generations together.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, it's really, I used to do this thing when I had third age. We had on the couch with Mary, it was written up in Faust's company. And I told the investors we need a couch so we can bring in talent and tell stories, kind of like this.
Yeah.
I saw this woman who worked with me 25 years ago. I said, what did you remember about working with me? She said, Facebook now. She said, I remember the meetings we had on the couch where people shared their stories. The sharing of stories is what happens at dinner. It's what happens when we cook. And I think that the digital world has made that less touch available. In my
Yes.
own community, someone just started Wednesday night dinner where you sign up for a table and you meet other people in your community. That's
Wow.
that's the thing that needs to happen.
And I think related to that is you had another post on LinkedIn, Neil,
Yeah.
recently that about aging well, and that I found that really interesting too, and it was eye-opening.
Yeah, yeah, and frankly, that was, I studied the longest living people in the world, kind of like through thinking through blue zones, reading a lot of research papers where people are living longer, and they're not hitting the gym. That's actually the surprising part, that it's actually the way that everyday life has been designed, which I think goes back to, this conversation we're having around community and purpose, combined with everyday movement. So it's like the longest living people are not, and I think it's kind of like an interesting juxtaposition to the way the longevity medicine movement is moving of like, oh, exercise a lot and take all these supplements and peptides and all this. And it's like, instead, if you actually study the way to live longer and healthier, it's be part of a community, have a sense of purpose, get natural movement, so walk a lot, so natural exercise, bike around, have a dog. By the way, statistically unbelievable benefits from having a dog. I did another research on this where we published around the benefits of a dog and dementia prevention. Like shocking, just simply having the dog around, interacting with it, going out for a walk, and even the reduction in the feeling of loneliness and isolation. So yeah, it's like simple things like that I think are accessible to everyone. But there's great tips to age healthy, and it's not getting a gym membership and buying expensive supplements.
Yeah, and your treadmill's not going to get excited when you walk in the door, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
You're really redefining, you're bringing back care in the world of caregiving, I think, and
Yeah.
it's in keeping with our podcast theme today. And so everyone should follow you, Neil, and follow your work. And I love how you're changing the lives, and the parents are noticing, the kids are noticing. We have better recipes being shared. It's all to the good. Although I
Thank you.
worry sometimes about my sister. I think she gets all her news from TikTok.
Hopefully, it's positive news.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty fun news, actually. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Fred.
Well, great work, Neil. Our next guest is from a company that is also doing great work on the health and wellness front. Withings is based in France and has been using smart technology in scales, blood pressure monitors, and beautifully designed wearables. And there is more that is new. With us is Paul Buckley, who heads up sales and marketing for North America. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Fred. Nice to see you again. Mary, nice to see you as well. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me on.
Sure. Wonderful to see you, Paul. We're big fans and we're so happy to see all the attention you received at CES working with ARP and the Age Tech Collaborative.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a great partnership that we feel our products dovetail nicely into the AARP audience, and we're providing health data for people at home, especially when they start tracking it as they get older in age. And it's really simple to use all of our products. We'll talk about a few of them today, but for people and your listeners who don't know about Withings, you can just go to withings.com and we can go through all the products right there.
Just terrific. Well, the innovations just keep on coming from the company, Paul. And one of your latest almost sounds like something out of Star Trek and kind of looks like it. It's called BMO. Tell us about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so BMO, I have it in my hand right here. Let's see if I can bring this up and show it in the screen. I'm going to do an ECG in front of your audience. I can do it right now.
Wow.
Now, it said canceled, so I think you got to
Oh,
set something.
hold on. Let's see. Here we go. Let's try it now. There it goes. So this is a handheld thermometer, right? That captures 3,000 measurements within 6 seconds. It also is a handheld stethoscope, digital stethoscope, where you can listen to your lungs and listen to your heart. This is very helpful with telemedicine. And then also, I'm doing an ECG and an SpO2 for your audience right now. And I'll pull it away for HIPAA reasons.
Hoping you're healthy there, Paul. That's
I am. And my ECG is recorded, so I'm all set.
So
But
this sounds like something every household could use. And
yeah,
how might it work with telehealth visits?
well, I think when you're on the phone with a or a call like this with a doctor, they can ask you to take a reading, and you can share that reading very simply with your doctor through a PDF, simply through our app with the Withings app. And this is a gives a chance for the doctor to make a better, more informed diagnosis of what's going on with you, whether they need you to come into the office or not, or maybe it's just something they can prescribe you medicine over this call. So it's just really a tool to help the doctors, but it's becoming more and more of trend right now, at least for us, to provide products with that give predictive health assessments and give the tools to the doctors to make a better assessment and maybe prevent you from having to go into the doctor's office.
so
So it definitely,
there are actual recordings of your breathing and
yes.
your heartbeat, and that
So
those can be shared too.
yeah, so the recordings will go right to your phone, and then you can share that through right through emails.
So your doctor can actually listen to your chest and your heartbeat
Yes.
without you having to go in.
Yes. So what you would there'd be a recording, very good that you bring it up. So it's not in real time. So you would do the recording in front of them, or you could do the recording before the call and then send them that information. They can listen to your lungs, whether there's rattling or whatnot going on. So they can make the call from there.
You really packed so much technology in here, but have kept it easy to use, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the
It's in the
selling
palm of your
price
hand.
for all that's in it, the selling price seems pretty affordable.
Yes, it's 249, $249, and it takes up to 8 people, and it's rechargeable battery. It's great for families, great for trips. If you're doing trips and you're not feeling well, this is going to really come in handy. Um, it's a great tool, and it's really the future of diagnosis at home. We've come a long way from putting a thermometer under your tongue.
Just terrific. And like you said, easy to travel with, very, very portable, and just terrific. And you're also coming out with the Body Scan 2
Yeah.
scale. I've
So
seen the
this is
first
what
one,
we
which is I've been impressed with.
Yeah, let me see. Here we go. Timing's perfect here on the screen. So this is Body Scan 2. This is our top of the line scale, and it's really a health station. So this is an upgrade from our Body Scan 1, which provided 40 biomarkers, which was segmental body composition, which means right and left arms and legs, muscle mass and fat mass, as well as vascular age, which is the speed of your blood up to your heart and back. And then also we were giving an ECG, a 6-lead ECG, So that's giving you a FDA cleared ECG just by stepping on the scale. And then also we're giving you an electrodermal activity score, which is measuring the activity in your feet through your nerve endings and letting you know whether you need to make a diet change or get out and exercise more. So that's the electrodermal activity is on a scale to 1 to 100. So you want to have that as high as possible. So you want to make sure that you're constantly working and constantly staying up and about. And then the muscle mass is really something you want to track as well. As you get older, we're losing 1% a year plus 65, I think, or that number moves around, but definitely we're losing muscle mass as we get older. And it's very important for that AARP audience as well to understand the benefits of this scale. Now that's body scan one. Before you, body scan two, we added on additional features, which the first one is a hypertension score. So as you hold the handle, see if I can bring the handle up right here. As you hold that handle, these contacts here, we're going to be able to do a 6-lead ECG again, but we're going to give you a hypertension score, whether it's normal, whether it's pre-hypertension, and it's also hypertension risk. Now, when Apple came out with this on the wrist, right, they kind of opened the door a little bit with the FDA to start providing this sort of reading to people at home. And we're the first company to essentially embed this into a scale and allow you to do this without wearing a wearable. So you're going to get all this information just by stepping on the scale 90 seconds every single day. But I'm not done yet. We also added on more scores so we can now track the speed of the blood flow mainly through your body and really looking at the speed of the blood going in and out of your heart. And we're going to give through an algorithm, we're going to give your heart a heart age number. So that heart age could be your age, it could be younger, which is good, or it could be older. And that's all predicated on the Withings audience and how you fit into that population with your age, height, weight, and sex, and then how your heart is working. And if your heart is beating faster than normal, it's essentially like a car. It's running too long, and so at a certain point, it's starting to run like it's older. So you want it to be younger and to get that heart age down to the right number.
I think you've got a lot of Mother's Day gifts here. So tell us, when will that be available and the price point of the body scan too?
So the body scan will be available right now in May. Those
Mother's
dates may move around a little bit, but right now we're saying May. So Mother's Day could work, or Father's Day is even more forgiving. And BMO is available now. And body scan is $5.99, and that will be available at withings.com first, and then it will go to retail after that. And
Tell us
BMO
just
is available now everywhere.
tell us just a little bit about the engineering team that this company has. They're doing such great work, and I'm always impressed with the the science you put into this and getting the certifications you need to put it on the market so that people can really rely on the numbers that they're getting.
It's quite fascinating what the team can do. We're a Paris-based company. We do all our IP in Paris. So all we own all our patents. We do our manufacturing overseas, but the team is hundreds of people that are some of the brightest minds in Paris that are really taking the latest technologies and making them work through algorithms that can really help people through predictive medicine, predictive help outcomes.
I was just on a call this morning with Paris. They just invited me to come in September and be
There
a
you go.
part of the conference you have in Cannes, where they said that you were one of the stars, that Withings was one of the growth story stars. So, Paul, congratulations to you and the whole Withings team. You're really making such important use of technology for well-being, and I know our listeners are going to be very interested.
Well, thank you so much for letting us get the word out there, and we're hoping we're really making a difference in people's lives.
Thanks, Paul. Mary, we have another guest from the world of technology, too, from a very interesting company called the Smarter Service. CEO and co founder Terry Dry. Hi, Terry.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Terry, as you know, I'm a huge fan of what you do and how you're making
Likewise.
yeah, how you're making technology more accessible for older adults And so tell us more about the company and the service and also the customer delight you see.
Yeah, thanks, Mary, and thanks, Fred, for having me. It's really great to be here. Our service is called the Smarter Service, and the goal here is we are a one-on-one personalized, human-enabled tech concierge service. And what that means is we're focusing on closing the digital divide and providing that last mile solution. And really what that is helping with adoption and usage of technology that's going to help older adults live a better life. Because our sort of mantra is all this great technology is out there right now. It's constantly being developed, but it only works if it gets used. And so there's this little gap right now of lots of cool stuff over here, lots of great technology that's going to make my life better. And then the older adults over here that aren't necessarily native to all this technology. So therefore, usually looking for a trusted relationship, a helping hand that's going to help them actually use and adopt this stuff. So that's where our focus is. Our mission is to ensure that technology can serve rather than frustrate.
And so you're in a lot of senior communities where you have
Yeah.
these tech bars. Tell us how this came about. What was your motivation?
Yeah, the original idea is I've been entrepreneurial all my life, as Mary knows, and I really, really try to focus on how do I solve problems, A, but how do I use technology to make people's lives better, and typically people who are somewhat overlooked. So when I looked at technology and overlooked populations, it was very clear on the older adult side, and then where it really came about was I'm middle age, which it is what it is, and but now I look at a lot of people around me, and we have aging parents. And in my situation, I had my in-laws. I live in Los Angeles. My in-laws were in Connecticut, and they were in poor health. And so I found every time we'd go to Connecticut, setting up all sorts of things to keep them safe, to keep them healthy, whether it was setting up Alexa, setting up cameras, setting up doorbell, everything we could do, all the way down to reminders for my mother-in-law to take her pills on Alexa with reminders from my kids' voices so she'd actually do it. Right. So that was a real great move for compliance, by the way. So I had that piece. And then I had my parents who live here who are fortunately in good health. But I found that I was the Pied Piper of technology. I was always bringing something new into their lives to kind of help them, engage in the world right now. So whether it was an Alexa, whether it was a Ring doorbell, whether it was an Apple TV streaming, or just teaching them how to do a telehealth appointment, I was always that person. And I felt like there needs to be a professional, trusted service that is doing this for people because A, I don't always know what I'm doing, and B, maybe I'm not great at it. I'm not an expert. So that's where I really came with this idea. And then to Mary's point, we got into senior living communities. So we started serving people in this way with this personal tech concierge. And then we really saw the opportunity in senior living to scale and expand it and be an amenity really that is of service.
And one of the points you make, and I love this point, is the average person going in to senior communities have 9 devices. And
Yeah.
heaven help you if your partner was your sysop and then your partner's gone, and then who's going to help you fix the remote, uh, make sure your airline ticket's in good shape,
Yeah.
all these other things. And whenever people say to me, oh, we're going to master the technology because we've grown up with it, we used it more in the workforce. The technology is always changing. We just, on this very podcast, we just learned about this amazing scale that's going to help measure our vascular health. We want to know about things like that, right?
Exactly right. And what this is where we got into some of the next phases of it, but we really looked at it's a product market fit what we're doing, but to your point, Mary, it then becomes a product society fit because when you can get older adults really comfortable with technology, it opens the door for so many opportunities to be of help and to be of service and to make people's lives better. And I think to your point, Mary, as things are evolving, it's not sort of a nice to have, oh, that'd be cool to do it. Like just having your daily life is harder now if you're not adopting technology. I'll give you a story. We were doing a training about QR codes and things actually in an active adult community. So not even senior living, active adults. So I'd say the average age there was in their late 60s, early 70s. And somebody raised their hand and said, "That's all okay, but can you just tell me why I can't pay with a check at the grocery store anymore?" So there are questions like that that come up that show you that there's just this gap. and then you can close it really quickly. Everybody adopted it. But to your point, Mary, as days go by, people are showing up with more technology, more things, and the expectation is higher. And that's really what we're trying to deliver in the senior living space.
You've hit a hot button for me because menus with a QR code in senior
Yeah,
care. Why not hand me the menu so I can read it in large print, right?
yeah,
Why do a QR code, right? And everything has gone that way, you know? I
yeah.
still like a print program at our conferences.
Yeah, and look, there's also a little bit of intimidation there, and it can make the older adult feel less than. Like I'll give my father two experiences in one day. We went to a Dodgers game, and the Dodgers are now only digital tickets. And I did the tickets through the scanner on the QR code. My dad turns to me about 10 minutes into it. He goes, "This is the last baseball game I'm ever going to go to." Because he was so uncomfortable with the idea of the smartphone and doing that. It was intimidating. Then we went to a restaurant with a QR code, and he told me, if I ever see this, I just walk out because it's just too
And
intimidating.
And you told a story the other day at lunch. I just love the story about because it was so familiar to me from running SeniorNet, where an older person who was very accomplished in their field, but maybe not aware of AI, wanting to learn. Now I've got to learn about this, right?
Yeah,
And so, yes, maybe AI could help transform your life in all sorts of ways, but where's the safe place to do it? Because we really don't want to have our children take the precious time we have with them to be our system operators, right? We want to just enjoy the children, not have them fix the remote when they're
that's
here,
right.
you
That's right.
know?
There's this feeling of being a burden when they don't want to be. And then there's also this interesting dynamic we've seen where when we're there with the family, because often we are, when their child leaves the room, all of a sudden they tell us everything. Oh, I didn't want them to know this, but I don't know this, or I need help with this, or they got this
Yeah,
part wrong.
yeah.
So it becomes this whole other
Yeah,
dynamic.
yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more, Terry, about the nuts and bolts, how people
Yeah.
can use the smarter service, and what some of the most common things that you tackle are.
Yeah, so thank you. The way that currently there's a couple ways to use the smarter service, but what we're really doing first off is the directly into senior living communities. So where that trusted relationship is that key and that human enabled piece. So in a senior living or active adult community, picture this like a new amenity. So picture an Apple Genius bar meets a concierge desk right in the lobby of the community when you walk in. And so it is there to do one-on-one. You can stop by and ask questions. There's also in-resident trainings. Then there's also education enrichment trainings, is like the example I was giving before. And we're also providing a lot of content. And the content pieces can be run through resident engagement platforms or other different networks, but it's really focused on fraud and scam protection as well as wellness. So there's a lot of sort of this all-encompassing piece of what we're doing. And it really, we're seeing senior living move from oh, that sounds nice to this is a need to have because, to Mary's point, people are moving in with a lot of technology, but there's also an expectation of this is an amenity we really want. So that's one side of it. Then the other nuts and bolts piece is directly. We have people who, if you're aging in place, you can come to us directly and we have an annual service where we are on call. So again, there's an in-person visit if you choose, or there's an on-call, let's call it virtual phone center or online piece where we're focusing on safety, software security, scam prevention, all those different pieces. So there's some serious benefits there when it comes to sort of digital literacy, social care, and those elements. And that it's all about adoption and usage, right? So that's what we're doing it because what we're seeing big picture is it feels like technology is getting done to older adults rather than being done for them. And so we're really trying to flip that switch and make it where technology, works for them. And I kind of jokingly say there's all this stuff, but using us is like putting oil in your car, right? You're not going to just drive your car without oil in it, but there's all these great components that make the car work, but you need to have the oil that puts it all together. And so that's one piece of what we're doing. And the other way, Fred, to engage with us is we have sort of an Intel inside, almost OnStar model. So there are resident engagement platforms, there are different things out there that people use where there's this smarter service like tech help button where somebody can come on and help you. So we're trying to be this synonymous with helping older adults with technology, and that's all the different ways we are able to reach people because we want to just be across all platforms to be helpful.
So, Terry, congratulations on the really important work that you're doing. It's just a joy to work with you and to see the progress. And I also love each week what the big issues are.
Yeah.
You have so much market intelligence, and we would love to feature that on this podcast. Like, what was the biggest topic last week?
Yeah.
Is it door alarms? Is it wellness apps? What are some of the things you're seeing?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that we want to develop and hopefully we can launch along with you, Mary, is I came from the music business originally, so I almost call it like the Billboard Hot 100 or the top 40 of like, what are we seeing right now? What are the questions that are being asked and how are we solving it? And are there trends emerging? So honestly, when you're in a senior living community, you often hear things like, my printer doesn't work, my computer doesn't work. And it's often, somebody will show you a computer that's 20 years old and say, why doesn't this work? And so that can be a relatively simple solution of time for a new computer. But then there's other things that are very, very common, like help me with this app. One of the more interesting things that happened was one of the senior living communities had a new resident engagement platform on the screens. So everybody would turn on their screens and somebody called and said, can you help me? I don't understand why all these boxes are on my TV. And our tech concierge thought, oh, it must be the cable box or something. And then when we got in the room, it was the apps. It was all the boxes of the different apps on the screen, but it just wasn't native. And so then, but once we kind of held his hand, explained what it is, because we're the trusted person he could ask, then it was like all the floodgates open. There were all these different questions and things. So it can be as simple as that, as well as a lot of questions about software security, scam, just really trying to train people on that. So that's what we see a lot of these days, but it's, it can be something else. Like we had a resident community that put in all new digital thermostats and they called us, they said, we thought this was going to be simple, but it's not. And everybody's mad at us. So can you come in and do a training on how to use the digital thermostats? Then we partnered with the Social Security Administration on a much different level because they did everything online. And they said, we're not getting the uptick that we're looking for from a certain age demographic. So we went in and started doing trainings in partnership with Social Security on how to log in, how to do sort of the simple pieces of getting your benefits there. So there's just so many different ways we're connecting the dots and seeing it. And yeah, we're hoping to then start publishing almost like a top 5, list of what's going on and seeing the trends, because we think it might be interesting insights for everybody in this age tech space.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate all of our guests today. What a way to head towards spring, Fred.
Absolutely. And the site, by the way, is thesmarterservice.com. So thank you to Dr. Emmanuel. Go get his new book. And to Neil Shaw from Care Yaya, to Paul Buckley from Withings, and to Terry Dry from The Smarter Service. And thank you to Morlo for sponsoring today's episode, a women-founded athleisure brand inspired by pickleball and committed to brain health with every purchase. You can learn more at Moorlow, MOORLOW.com, and use the code FOM15 to save 15%. Pickleball is a great way to put more spring into your spring, so thank you all for taking time with us. And you can always find more at maryfurlong.com/podcasts.